I'm very excited to put out my second album. It's been a long journey, and sophomore records are always very hit and miss. They can either make or break your career from then on. Like first albums usually go well, and yeah, the second album's always quite difficult. So I'm excited and apprehensive at the same time to put it out. The plus and multiply thing is not necessarily just a concept. It's just at the beginning of my recording career in terms of being in the mainstream. I just worked out what my next 10 albums would be called, I guess. Gives you something to focus on, because then on the next album I'm not going to be thinking, what do I do? What's the concept? I've got it all worked out. Multiply stands for, as I was saying before, the site's getting bigger and you take everything that you did from Plus, which started everything off, and then you just make it a lot bigger. You multiply everything. So you'd go from sports halls into arenas into stadiums. You'd go from acoustic songs into the big sort of Pharrell produced numbers, and you go from 10,000 sales to 100,000. I don't know, that kind of thing of just multiplying everything. The first album was written largely when I was 17, and I'm 23 now. And 22, 23 was pretty much when the second album was written. So it's a bit more experienced, I guess, but also sound-wise, it kind of leans away from the singer-songwriter thing a bit to more urban influences. I'd say America was an influence of the new sound, yeah. Not so much because I toured there a long time. It was more just the music that I was listening to. I was listening to a lot of rap music while making the record. So yeah, that's probably what influenced it. So I listened to Lauryn Hill's album a lot. Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. That was something that was on repeat throughout the whole thing. I think the first single sounds fresh and now. I ironically, it's an older sound. Like I did the record with Pharrell, and we were sort of channeling 70s music, really. But it does sound fresh and now, I guess, because Pharrell owns the airwaves. The first single is about being at a house party. Yeah, being at a house party and having quite a bit to drink and meeting someone who seems cool. Pretty much. I've always been a massive fan of Pharrell's work. I love the NERD stuff. I love the Justin Timberlake albums. And I mean, everything that he's done's been quality. But I kind of shied away from it, to be honest, because I didn't want to be. I didn't really want to do what everyone else was doing, and because he is such a talented producer, a lot of people want to work with him. But I met him at the Grammys, and I went up and said I was a fan, and he surprisingly said that he was a fan, and I said, right, okay, cool, let's try and do a song. And I went in, we did 3 songs, and yeah, they were some of the best pieces of music that I've done. So regardless of him being a popular producer, and you know, everyone's go-to guy, like there's a reason for it. Like he's very, very, very talented, and just brings something new to people. Like I've never done. I feel like my first single can get played in a club, and I've never done a club tune before. Like yeah, interesting. I'd say in the single there's definitely an element of rapping. It's very fast singing, but I'd say there's some of it that isn't even sung. So yeah, I would say it's rapping, but I wouldn't say it's like proper rap music. It's just me talking very fast. I'd made the album and it leaned towards folk singer songwriter, and then I did that song, and I was sort of saving it for the next record and just do a whole record like that. But then after that song, more and more of these soul influenced tunes started coming out of me, and the probably about 6 within 3 months, and then they shaped the rest of the album. So that song kind of led the album into the path where it is now, I guess. The other producers on the record, I did a lot of it with Rick Rubin, which I was very honoured to do. He's a fantastic producer as well. A guy called Benny Blanco. Um, Jake Gosling, who I did the first record with. Johnny McDade from Snow Patrol, who I started this record with, and we did a large amount of it together. I lived with him for a year in Nashville and Los Angeles. Who else? Yeah. No, and Jeff Basker did a song on it as well. I've never really set my sights on anyone since I did a rap EP like 4 years ago now, but I've never really set my sights on anyone since then. They've just kind of come to me. Like obviously you've always wanted to work with someone like Pharrell or Rick Rubin, but it's been a very natural thing where you've both gravitated towards each other and then worked. I haven't so much just picked people out and say I want to work with them and then done it. It's been a very natural thing. Well, a lot of the time I recorded each song with many producers, so you just listen to the best version. Or in the case of Don't, I did a version with Benny and I did a version with Rick, and I kind of liked both of them, but I liked elements of both of them. So Benny and Rick actually got together and fused the two, which sounds cool now. Yeah, the second album was mainly the inspiration came from touring and all the experiences that I had whilst being away from home. Not necessarily just writing about being in hotel rooms and traveling the world, but more like the relationships that can form or fall apart whilst you're away, I guess. I guess the main topic for any singer songwriter or any artist would be women or boys. You never know. But yeah, so women. Writing songs always differs for me. Sometimes it will start with me creating music and then singing over that. Sometimes it will start with just a line or just a melody. Yeah, it differs. It differs. The Pharrell ones were the first time that I was working to a beat that was already there. So I would always, in the past, pick up a guitar, make the music, and then write something over it. But he was coming with half finished ideas and we were going through them and he'd flick through them. I'd be like yes or no or don't like that, but can you change this? And the first single was one of these songs where I didn't really get it to begin with. Like I'm very much I don't know what the word is, but when a melody doesn't conflict with anything, when it just sounds very sweet, and that was a very harsh riff, and I just kind of wrote it off to begin with, but then I started playing it on the guitar without knowing it, and the fact that it got in my head that quickly, I thought, I'll give the song a go, and Pharrell was very key in sort of pushing me to do that. And then, yeah, the song just unfolded. I think, I don't know what's changed about me. I'm more ambitious, I think, this time around because I didn't expect the first album to take me where it took me. So I think with this second album, I'm a bit more ambitious and I've set my goals higher than they originally were. Personal recipe to survive being a famous musician, I guess, would be don't make a fuss about it. I think when you have your entourage and your bodyguards and you feel like you're a victim in the public eye, you're going to be a victim in the public eye because I go everywhere on my own. I always just wander places on my own, and I've sold a few records in England. I've done quite well there. That's where I live. But I can still go on trains. I can still go on buses, and people notice, but they're not quite sure. They're like, oh, is it or isn't it? Because I'm on a bus. But I feel like if I turned up somewhere with 17 SUVs with like 4 bodyguards around me and all my mates, people are going to know exactly who I am. And then that's going to cause drama and I'm going to feel like victim and like, oh, I don't want to be here. But I find if you just slip under the radar, it's very easy to survive. There's some times where it gets a bit too much, but you just have to choose the places carefully. Like I'll go somewhere where I know people that I know are going to be. I wouldn't just, well, I did turn up at a shopping mall on my own to just go and buy some sunglasses, and that didn't end well. But yeah, you just have to treat yourself like a normal person, and other people are going to treat you like a normal person. If you treat yourself like a star, people are going to treat you weirdly. I think, anyway. I'd never say my success was too much, no. And it's definitely the start of a dream coming true. But I'd say if my dream had come true by now, I wouldn't be very driven, and I wouldn't be releasing a second album. I'd just be chilling at home and being like, right, I've done it. But I feel like it was a good starting point to make the dream come true. And it didn't really. The success of the album only drove me more to make this album as good as it can be and carry on with the success. Yeah, it's made me a very competitive person now. It sometimes gets a bit strange looking at the friendship circle that I've amassed during the last 3 years of touring, but I don't know. I just see everyone as business professional friendships. Like my friendships that I have with the people I went to school with and that are back home, who I see when I go back home, I see those as kind of lifelong, like, heart friendships, family friendships. Whereas I don't know. I don't really take it too seriously. Living in the Hollywood world and having all these famous friends. It isn't necessarily something that I thought would happen or is necessarily going to last. You know how careers are nowadays. They're pretty flash in the pan. And I think as long as I've got my core friendship group at home, I'm more than happy to travel across the world and meet all these amazing people and go on mental nights with them and have stories to sit down and tell my grandchildren one day. But I wouldn't necessarily say that's like where I am now. I dip in and out. I'm not always just those aren't like my key friends. Like, my friends are definitely my home friends, my homeboys. I think the times have changed in America. Well, not changed, because I think English music's always been big in America, but I think nowadays if you go over to the USA with an English accent, people listen to you a lot more. It's very strange. Just being English over there worked as an advantage for me. I still had to do all the work and produce the goods, but to get my foot in the door somewhere, just being English helped, just to get your foot in the door, I guess. But then you do have to have a song to follow it up. First record I ever bought was The Offspring, Conspiracy of One. I would still play it, but the CD, like, I played the CD a lot of time. It's covered in grit, dirt, scratch. I found it the other day, though. I've got into the habit of going to visit things. I went to the Natural History Museum the other day. I went to Disneyland, which was fun. Marrakesh. Yeah, just like random places. One day I'll just wake up and I'll have a day off and I'll be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go here, and yeah, it works. It's a nice way to be.